The US government finally found a way to erase the $39 trillion national debt, because this is by far the greatest threat to the future of the US economy. The Federal Reserve will no longer be targeting a 2% inflation rate and will start helping the government with interest payments. The good news is that it will bring down the interest rates for everybody in the economy, including yourself. The bad news is that the US dollar will start losing its value a lot faster. So pay a very close attention to this video, because you might end up losing your entire savings. The US economy has a very serious problem, and that's very high interest rates. Interest rates right now are at about 3.6%, and they have been as high as 5.5% back in 2022 and 2023. But the US economy, since the 2008 financial crisis, got used to a very low interest rates that were at about 0%. They lasted to about 2017 and 2018. Yes, there was a spike in interest rates to above 2%, but that was for a very brief time. Then the Fed lowered down interest rates back to zero in 2020. This is creating a national threat to the US government because the economy has already got hooked on very low ultra interest rates. And this chart perfectly shows that, because the US interest payments back in 2015 were about $200 billion. That might seem like a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing, because the US government cannot easily afford $200 billion. And since then, yes, they have risen slightly, but even as far as 2022, interest payments were lower than $500 billion. And then you can see that the number easily accelerates to over $1 trillion by 2025. And looking at the forecast, you can see that number will keep rising up to $2 trillion within the next 7 to 8 years. At this point, the US government will have to restructure the government, because the US government will not be able to afford Social Security payments, Medicare, and this is of course a threat. So we have to do something to bring this down to a sustainable level, so that even 5 or 10 years from now, interest payments won't be more than $1 trillion. And if the economy keeps rising, then 7 or 8 years from now, we can still afford $1 trillion in interest payments. Now, the second problem that it's creating for the US economy is that high interest rates are preventing the US economy from growing. And that means that China is almost about to overtake the US government or the US economy as the largest economy in the world. China has already overtaken the United States when it comes to purchasing power parity, but if Chinese GDP will become much larger than the US GDP when it comes to the US dollars, suddenly China will be able to project much more power globally. And that is a direct threat to the US dollar as the global reserve currency. Because when the world is going to realize that China is much larger economy than the US economy, of course, a lot of capital will start flowing to China and not the United States. And the math at this point is very simple. The Chinese GDP is growing much faster than the US GDP. So if you can do math, you can easily see that in 7 to 8 years, the dynamic is going to flip and China will be a much larger economy. And what is preventing the US economy from growing as fast as China's economy is that interest rates in China are much lower than the interest rates in the US. So we have to change the system in such a way that the United States will be able to lower down interest rates to the exact same level as the Chinese interest rates are right now, so that if both economies grow at the exact same level, then of course China won't be able to overtake the US as the largest economy. So by 2035, of course, Chinese economy won't be the largest economy in the world. Now the question is that, why can't we lower interest rates right now? The US government has to pay a higher yields if inflation is going to rise. The yields are the interest rates that you make as an investor when you invest in the US treasuries, in the US government bonds. And these government bonds have to pay at least a slightly higher interest rates than the current inflation, otherwise the system is going to break. If I'm going to invest and I'm going to give you a loan, then I'm expecting you to pay me an interest rate that is at least slightly higher than inflation. If that's not the case, then there is no reason for any investor, including in the US and outside the United States, to invest in the US treasuries. Current inflation has risen to 4.2% last month, and the yields right now are 4.5%. So the yields right now are paying slightly higher than the inflation rate. If you look at the inflation at the beginning of this year, it went down to as low as 2.4%. The yields has also started going down to less than 4%. But because the war in Iran has happened and it led to increase in oil prices, that increase in oil prices led to higher inflation. Higher inflation obviously led to higher yields. Now the government has to pay much more in interest payments, which we identified that this is one of the greatest threats to the US economy. So we have to bring inflation somehow to 2% to ensure that we can lower down the yields to 2%. If one way or another we change the way we measure inflation, and now the new inflation is going to be 2%, suddenly that is going to be a justification for the Federal Reserve to lower down interest rates. And now the market will look at inflation, and inflation is 2% because we changed the way we measure inflation. So the market will accept a yield that is slightly higher than 2%, let's say 2.5% or maybe 2.7%. And at that rate, interest payments suddenly will go down substantially. And instead of paying, let's say, $2 trillion by 2035, the total interest payments will stay at about $1 trillion or less. And even interest payments starting from next year will go down from $1 trillion maybe to $700 billion or $650 billion. Yes, that's still a lot of money, but you have to understand that the GDP is growing on the other side. So in relation to the GDP, so we're creating a system when interest payments are going down, well, the GDP is growing and those interest payments are no longer a threat to the US economy. So the solution is called trimmed mean inflation. This is basically a new way that we can measure inflation. Up until now, the Federal Reserve used its main method of measuring inflation, CPI, Consumer Price Index. CPI takes a bunch of different categories of goods in the economy, and an increase in them is going to lead to higher inflation. But now the Fed is proposing a very new method, is that sometimes there are price shocks in the economy. Let's say that Iran has closed the Strait of Hormuz. Now, there is a shortage of supply of oil in the market, which is leading to this increase in prices. But that's temporary because that's a political problem. When we solve this political problem, it is going to bring down inflation. So if you zoom out and look at the overall trend of inflation, it is not changing the overall trend because inflation is going down, but that's just a political crisis. So why don't we, instead of focusing on these individual events, we are going to focus on the overall picture. So we are going to remove these price shocks out of the equation. So because there is a crisis on the other part of the world and it led to higher oil prices, we're not going to include that as part of inflation. So based on this new data, just because prices are now increasing, it doesn't mean that inflation is actually increasing. It also changes the way we measured inflation, for example, back in 2021 and 2022. Back then, house prices skyrocketed, so that led to very high inflation. But again, according to this new method, it is not real inflation because there is a one-time huge increase in house prices because a lot of people are buying houses, but it does not fundamentally change the way we measure inflation. So we have to remove house prices entirely out of the equation when we measure inflation, for example, back in 2022 and 2023. So in 2022, when inflation reached 9%, according to this new method, inflation would be as high as 5.5%. So we no longer have inflation of 9%. And based on the current method, by February of this year, we have already reached an inflation of 2%. This new method basically allows the Federal Reserve to revise the way it measures inflation, and now it gives it the credibility to lower down interest rates to 2.5%, maybe even as low as 2%. Now, why would the Fed suddenly make this change? The world is changing, and we're no longer living in a US world-based order. The US world order was that when the United States was so powerful that the US could change anything in the world to force it to move to its own interest. So if there is a crisis on the other part of the world, the US military would go there, solves the problem, and we no longer have a shortage of oil in the market. If there is another country in the world that wants to sell their oil not in the US dollar, but in another currency, let's call it Libya, suddenly there is a civil war in Libya and we have fixed the system over there. If there is somebody that wants to close the Strait of Hormuz, then you are going to invade that country, whatever the problem could be. However, that's no longer the case today because the new world order is a multipolar world order where the United States is no longer can deploy troops to change the political situation in the war. And the Iran war is a great example. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz, and that created this inflation that we're seeing right now. And the United States cannot possibly send hundreds of thousands of the US personnel to force Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz. Because the United States is no longer the sole superpower, we no longer can change the world to follow the US interests. That's why the only solution at this point is to change the way we measure inflation. And Kevin Warsh perfectly justified that by saying that, yes, additional funds that will get into the economy will be justified because there is a boom in productivity due to AI. AI is going to fundamentally grow the economy and grow the productivity. So if we lower down interest rates, all that money gets into the economy will be justified by all that extra productivity that artificial intelligence is dropping into the economy. So we won't see any serious inflation or whatsoever. The problem for the average person is that it is going to make your dollars a lot less valuable. So your dollars that are sitting in the bank account will become less valuable. Your real wages will start going down substantially down. Yes, on paper inflation could be 2%, but in reality prices could be rising a lot faster. And that's why we have two fundamentally important concepts, and that's called real inflation and artificial inflation. Real inflation is when you see real prices rising the way you feel it in your day-to-day basis. So if you would ask anybody, people say that inflation over the last 5 years have been so high that life is becoming unbearable. That's not just in the US. You can ask the average British person, you can ask the average European, and everybody across the globe will say that life is incredibly expensive. Artificial inflation is the way we measure inflation. And over the last 70 to 80 years, we have changed multiple times the way we measure inflation. One of the biggest changes was back in the 1980s, when the government decided that we're no longer going to include house prices in the inflation number because houses have turned into an investing asset. So investors are buying houses because they want to profit from the rise in house prices. So it's no longer reflecting the true increase in prices because now houses are an investing tool. When they removed house prices from inflation, suddenly house prices are rising every year, but they're not part of inflation. And if you would ask any average person, the average person needs a roof over his head. Either you are buying a house or you're renting a house. So a substantial amount of your income goes one way or another into shelter. So even though that house prices are no longer part of inflation, you still feel it on your day-to-day basis. So if we measure, for example, inflation in the last 5 to 6 years, since 2020, the way we measured inflation in 1970s, the real inflation would be almost 20%, or to be more precise, 18% instead of 9%. So the real inflation in 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023 was substantially higher than the inflation numbers they gave us. And the average person can confirm that by looking at house prices, because the biggest increase that people saw was in house prices. And even today, they are telling us that inflation is 4.2%, but if we use the same measures we did back in 1970s, inflation would be 5.2%. And the reason they don't want to tell you that number is that the total inflation since 2020 was about 29%, and wages have grown by about 20 to 30%. So politicians can easily tell you, yes, prices have increased by 30%, but wages have also increased by 20 to 30%. So one is offsetting the other. But if we use the method that we used to measure inflation back in 1970s and look at inflation since 2020, the real increase in prices have been by about 60%. So wages have increased by 20 to 30%, but inflation, or the real inflation, has been 60%. And that's why today the average person feels that life is a lot more expensive. So just like they changed the way they measured inflation back in 1980s, now they want to make a fundamentally the exact same change, but in this case they will basically remove all price shocks from the inflation data. That will help the government to suddenly lower down interest rates and bring down the interest payments. So instead of making $1 trillion in interest payments, we will be making $700 billion, maybe $600 billion. And from now onwards, even though that the national debt will keep rising substantially, the interest payments will be manageable. Secondly, lower interest rates will lead to higher GDP. at least on paper. The more money gets into the economy, the higher is going to be the GDP. So if the GDP grows much faster than the debts, then the debt to GDP ratio is going to be a lot lower. So even though that the debt might be $40 trillion and $45 trillion and $50 trillion, essentially the GDP will be growing faster, even if it's not the real GDP, but rather the nominal GDP. As long as the ratio between the GDP and the debt will be sustainable, it is not going to be a threat to the US government. So the real winners out of this change are going to be the AI companies and the government, because the government will not have to worry about the interest payments, and AI companies will be able to borrow money at a significantly lower interest rates to build the data centers and ensure that they will win the AI race against China. So the only path that I see that anybody can win in this economy is by investing in the right AI companies, because these AI companies right now has the biggest potential to increase the productivity. They will be borrowing a lot of money, they will be investing in these data centers, and they will be making a lot of money. So if your money is going to be sitting in a savings account doing nothing, it will start losing its value a lot faster. But if this money is invested in the right AI companies, then your money is going to multiply multiple times as the AI revolution will continue growing. So if you want to know what are the top 5 AI companies that you should be buying right now, you should be investing, that will be the biggest winners out of this AI race, that will grow by 1,000%, 2,000%, then check out the Investing Academy, because there I posted the top 5 AI stocks that you can buy right now. The link to the Investing Academy is in the description of this video.